The following podcast contains spoilers and pretty naughty language. We watch a thing. We watch a thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. Once again, I'm so lucky to have this guy on. It's one of my favourite people in the world, podcasting or not. It's Julio from the Contrarians. How you doing, mate?
Hey, I am so lucky to be invited back after not really being crazy about Cliffhanger. That shows that our friendship can survive anything, Billy.
That's right. That's right. I knew I had to get you on. I mean, you and I had been trying to line up another time to record anyway, and then I got this movie in as a Patreon request, and I was like, well, I know who I need to chat to about this. Because we had fun doing a Wes Anderson film together last time, and I'm sorry that I didn't like that as much as you hoped. So I'll be really curious to see where we go here. Yeah. So how have you been anyway?
Doing well. I don't remember what it was like here in Texas last time we recorded. But, you know, one of the reasons we ended up doing this instead of something that was more of a current release was because I told you, I don't know what it's going to be like when we're scheduled to record. And now I know what it's like. And we're in stage 5 again, which means that, you know, our hospitals are so full that you're basically, you know, stage 5 is bad. Stage 1 is great. And, we've been on stage 5 pretty much since after the holidays, surprise. And but they're expecting it to finally go down to stage 4 in a couple of weeks. So that'll be good. But whatever the case, it's not like I feel like going out and like being in a crowd with strangers watching a movie as much as I want to do it. You know, I skipped Scream. I skipped, I don't know what else has come out later. So I'm glad this one, easy. I just got an Amazon Prime and it was right there. Watch it from my couch. Yeah.
We are, of course, talking about The French Dispatch, new Wes Anderson film. Full title, The French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun. 2021 American anthology comedy film written and directed and produced by Wes Anderson. It has a huge ensemble cast. It stars Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Lea Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothy Chalamet, Bill Murray, Jeffrey Wright, Owen Wilson, Christoph Waltz, Edward Norton, Jason Schwartzman, Angelica Houston. The list goes on. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this one. Were you keen to get to this previously? Like, were you excited for this one?
Yes, I from the trailer, it just looked like so much fun. And I like Wes Anderson. I don't love all his movies, but I've always tried to watch them. I've seen them all except for Bottle Rocket. That's I mean, at this point, I'm like, why wouldn't I? It's just that I haven't gotten around to it. Man, I think I've seen everything since Life Aquatic in theaters. And of course not this one. And I know I just praised and celebrated the fact that I could watch it on Amazon Prime at home, but as I was watching, I was like, man, this would have been pretty cool in a movie theater.
I have to agree. I watched this at home as well, but I'm very lucky here to have a home theater set up, and I was so glad I chose to watch it there instead of like on my phone or something. The look of this film is stunning. Like, this is a really beautiful looking film for sure.
Yes, if things were normal, I would have gone to see it in theaters. The only reason I waited was just because, you know, it's chaotic. But it's good, and I wouldn't say that Wes Anderson is among my top directors or anything, but he's definitely one of those filmmakers that I'll go watch whatever he makes.
Yeah. Like I said last time, I have a bit of an odd relationship with Anderson where I love some of his stuff and I don't really love others. So I was curious to see this because I agree. The trailer I thought for this looked awesome. This looked really, really great. And I will venture to say that I think this is the most Wes Anderson film of all of his films. This is, it's insanely Wes Anderson. The whole vibe, the structure, it's just, if you were to get a bot to write a Wes Anderson film, I feel like this is the movie it would spit out.
Yes, I think so. I think that there are two types of Wes Anderson movies. I actually did my Letterboxd ranking of them, like in my list, and not including Bottle Rocket, and I could tell, you know, the big divide that's where at some point they truly become ensemble pieces, and I think that this is the ultimate Wes Anderson of that type of movie, where every single role is just an actor,
Yeah.
But I guess when did the break happen? Because even so Life Aquatic, Darjeeling Limited, Rushmore, those are more, I feel like they're more like they're not as
more kind of intimate,
sprawling
films.
narrative. Yeah, exactly. And so that is, I think, a type of Wes Anderson movie that we haven't gotten in a while. And,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, yeah.
We might at some point, but right now he's on this big epic kick. and yes, I agree. In that sense, this is a movie that represents all of that. I wonder if there are some Wes Anderson purists that are like, oh no, man, the early years were the best, and this is just he sold out.
I mean, there would be for sure. Absolutely, there would be. So let's get straight into it then. Did you like this film? That's the first question I want to ask.
Just bottom line it.
Curious. I'm just going straight in for it. Did you like this film?
I did.
You did.
I will add that there's only one Wes Anderson movie that I would say I haven't liked, and that is Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah.
Everything else, I walked away from it saying I liked it or I loved it. So in this one, it's unsurprisingly, it's a positive thing. Now, I didn't like everything about it, and this is one of those because it's an anthology of sorts.
Yes,
there are some very clear separations, and so I can say this was better than some other things.
Yep, I agree. And that is my problem with the film and why I didn't love it. I loved the first 10 minutes. I adored the start to this film. I thought it was great. And then even when you get into the anthology, I loved the bicycling segment, for example. I thought that was really clever and cool. And I think my issue then is that from that point on, you just get 3 stories, half hour each. And if you like the stories, great. If you don't, too bad. You just kind of, that's what you're getting. And
okay, but Billy, that is the case with every movie.
Yeah, it is, except that not every movie will have half an hour worth of characters that you really get on board with and love. And then that's done. That's done for the rest of the film.
Yes.
And you're given a completely different set of characters in a completely different situation. And if you don't like it, you just have to sit through it and wait to see if you like the next half hour segment. I personally, I feel like I would have liked more segments smaller. Like, I would have loved if this film had say, 10 5-minute segments.
Mm-hmm.
Look, maybe that's too many. Maybe we're getting into like movie 43 territory there, which everyone knows is the worst thing ever made. But I don't know. I feel like I might have enjoyed that more because, I don't love every segment of this anthology.
But did you know that it was going to be like this going in?
I didn't. No, going in, I didn't know it was an anthology film, actually. So that did surprise me straight up. Were you aware of that?
Not officially, but I felt that the trailer gave vibes of anthology. Like, that it tells you much, but I thought that it had to do with the magazine and I guess just the wide array of characters and situations and the setting, like the production design is kind of different, So I felt like we were going to deal with different narratives within the movie, and so it wasn't shocking when it happened. But how do you feel about anthology movies in general? Because I mean,
I actually do like them for the most part, and I think that this is a really cool concept. Like, I actually really love the idea that the way that it's framed as an issue of this newspaper is actually really cool. And I think to some extent that's why I think I would have liked more smaller stories, because that's more true to the form that it's kind of playing with, I think. Like, even if you just thrown in one more fluff piece like The Bicyclist, I think it might have brought me on board a little bit more. But I actually... That's what I mean. I'm torn. There's parts of this movie I really like. Conceptually, I love that. And I love the fact that each story really is told through voiceover, which you're always told is a bad thing when writing. But obviously, it's playing with the form and it's written like an article, like a feature article, which is kind of cool. But I just didn't get on board with each of the stories. And for me, I feel like they got worse as it went on, which is why I think I'm left with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because the first story is my favorite, the second is my second favorite, and the third is my least favorite. So I think even though it's not a long movie, I started to feel the runtime because of those segments, I think, and by the end I was a bit bored. But you obviously feel differently about about the stories?
Yes. I mean, I would rank them differently. I think the first one's my favorite.
Yeah.
The second one is my least favorite. And then it picked up at the end with the third one,
right.
which is, I think it's almost as good as the first one. And honestly, if I rewatch it, the third one might end up being my favorite because I think that I think there's more heart in the third one. It's just that there's also, I don't know, there's also more fluff. Whereas like the first one is just like concise and it does everything. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
And the bicycle thing, it was funny, but even though it's the shortest, it went on for too long for me. I'm like, tell me a story. Right. It's just, it's just like a succession of gags and it's funny, but I was getting restless because I think travelogues are not my thing.
Yeah, right. That's interesting because it was definitely towards the end of the film that I started getting restless. So, I mean, let's talk about the cast. And I guess we really have to break it down into the cast for each segment. Because even though this is a stacked cast, there are a lot of people. Like Elizabeth Moss, for example, is in this film for, I don't know how many lines she says, 2 or 3.
Yes.
Like, it's a stacked cast with not a lot of screen time for each of those players, I think.
I mean, but they have to know that going in. If they've watched any of the previous movies in this era of Wes Anderson filmmaking, they have to know that sometimes some of his key players get 2 lines and then they'll be featured more in a future movie. Like, I think this is the first time that Léa Seydoux has had like an actual character. Because I know she was in Grand Budapest Hotel. She might have been one other one with him, and that was just kind of a nothing character. And here she finally has something to do. So I think Elizabeth Moss, hopefully we'll see her with a more fleshed out character down the line. Who was Angelica Houston? Did you recognize her? Because I missed her.
No, me too. I didn't either. That's the surprising thing about reading that cast list. There's so many names there and you're like, really? Yeah. I think some of the characters for me, for example, even though I liked the first story, I feel like some of these were kind of nested with multiple framing devices, which I didn't need. I don't understand why the story is being told by Tilda Swinton. I didn't understand why we already have the framing device of the newspaper. Why do we then need Tilda Swinton at a conference telling this story? Do you know what I mean?
It's fun, Billy.
I don't know. For me, stuff like that lost it. Like, that's what I mean. Conceptually, I love the idea of playing with this format, and it's something we haven't seen before, but I just think it goes too far out of those bounds. And maybe I'm being a stickler to the quote-unquote rules, but for me, stuff like that lost me.
I like it because it gave you different points of view within the article. I think it's more noticeable, obviously, in the last one, right? When you have Jeffrey Wright, he wrote something, but there was something he left out of the story, and then you find out what he left out. And you can only do that if you break away from the framing device of, well, this is the article that I wrote. And I think that happens in all the stories. Frances McDormand, obviously, she wrote something, but there's also every time she stepped away from what she call it, journalistic neutrality or whatever, then there things happen that were not in the article. And I don't know how that applies to the Tilda Swinton thing, but I thought it was cool. But I like that kind of stuff. I like that weird narrative where you just kind of have a digression that's not really a digression. Yeah. You're telling a story and then you're like, but by the way, this is what happened. And then this character in this story tells a story about something else. And I like that. I like that a lot. And I mean, good for him for, I guess, trying something else, because like Grand Budapest had that other kind of weird device that was, I guess, I imagine it was more to your liking because it was more neatly structured, the whole thing of like a story within a story within a story within a story. The Russian dolls thing. And this one is a little messier, but I guess he goes with the atmosphere that he has of the writer's room in that magazine where everybody's just shooting ideas and, talking about editing stuff out and adding stuff. So
no, I mean, that's true. Yeah, when you look at it from that perspective,
I mean, I get it. Like, it can just throw you off if you think that you finally figure out how this movie's telling you a story and then it just throws something at you. But it's just so whimsical that I was just, take me wherever you want.
Yeah, and I do love the whimsy, which, I mean, this movie is beautiful, and it's like watching a fairy tale. Like it's you could almost see this as a watercolor book. Like it's so fun to look at, and just little details and stuff. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I kept going back between, is this like looking at a painting? Is it like looking at a photograph? But either way, it's just moving. I think the way that he frames, that he composes his shots, and I mean, he'll move the camera at times, but for the most part, it's that thing where he'll just set the camera, and then just like these really complex things will happen in there, and it's
some of that beautiful shot where the camera is moving from room to room as the people are all frozen, and you can see that they're holding pose, and you can see them kind of shaking and trying to hold it, and it's such a fantastic effect that's used so well. And things are being held by fishing line and stuff to keep them still, and it's like looking at a diorama. It's just so gorgeously, and everything is purposefully placed just so, like,
but now see, that's gonna, anybody that doesn't like that hates that kind of Wes Anderson aesthetic, they're gonna hate this movie. But I imagine they're not even gonna watch this movie. But as much as I was just saying that he's trying new things with the storytelling a little bit here, it's not like he's trying to win people over, any detractors of his style, which is fine. I mean, I think it works really well.
Yeah, and it's not, for me, it's not just the way he structures each shot. The way he structures the series of shots in a scene is really well thought out, I think. And this film, I think, really highlights that with things like the change of aspect ratios at certain points. And, you've got some segments that are black and white and some that are color, and some that, there are series of photographs at times. It's really, really nicely put together. I think the editing of this film is really great.
So speaking of that, though, what did you make of the changes from black and white to color and back, that whole back and forth? Because I kind of lost track of it. I was not trying to figure out like what exactly determined the change to color, other than I felt that sometimes the importance of a shot would suddenly be underlined by that shot being in color, and then you go back. Like, for example, when they finally reveal the paintings that Benicio del Toro has been working on for years, and suddenly you go from black and white to that shot of Adrian Brody, and it's all in color, and then you go back to black and white, and like I remember noticing it then, but for the most part it was just part of that thing of I was just letting the movie take me, and so sometimes it was in color, sometimes it was in black and white, but I never felt like a strong divide between those two, where I could just tell you, like some movies, you'll be like, oh, black and white is the past, and the present day is the color, and it's that simple.
No, I agree with you. I just let it wash over me, and I was just like, you show me what you want me to see, Wes. Like, that's the one thing, whether I have issues with the screenplay or the structure narratively or any of those kind of things, I always trust that he has a reason for, like, and I think you look at his composition and framing, like, this is a man who thinks about everything in a shot. His attention to detail is crazy. Like, he will pick up every little thing. And so I that's kind of how I feel about it, is like, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I think the editing is so well done that, like you say, I can't say I noticed it other than, like, I know it was happening, but it wasn't distracting me at all, which is amazing. Like, I don't know if you saw Transformers The Last Night when that came out.
No.
That movie was shot...
I love that you were bringing it up in a Wes Anderson episode.
So that movie was shot in 4 different aspect ratios, and not scene to scene. They just had 4 different cameras running. And so it will change aspect from shot to shot within a scene. You might have all 4 aspects in one 30-second sequence. And it's distracting as hell. Like, I find stuff like that really off-putting. So the fact that it took me kind of half an hour into this film before I realized that the entire thing wasn't 4:3 Academy aspect, because so much of it is, but it does jump around, and I didn't even realize that was happening because I was just taking it in. It's so nicely done. But it's funny, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think maybe it was the original Solaris that I'm thinking of, where for a long time people were like, shots that are in this kind of Hugh mean this? And really what happened was they just kept running out of budget, so they just kept having to change film stock. And, so people are always trying to like read into what things mean, and who knows, maybe Wes just thought it looked cool.
I'll take it, because I guess that what is really worth of praise is what we're talking about, which is that it feels seamless. And whether there was a really profound reason for it, or just, hey, it looks cool, it's time for it to be in color, then it doesn't take you out of the movie. So it's funny that you bring up Solaris, the original, because I just watched it.
Oh, right.
Well, to be fair, I watched it over the last 2 weeks, because that movie is slow, and it took me several sittings to...
Yep. That was the first ever movie that Topher and I did as a guest spot on another podcast. Way back, we'd been going for maybe like 3 months or something, and got an invite to do that movie, and it was so slow. It was just so long. Yeah.
Makes you appreciate 2001.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, if I had my way, this movie would be nominated for Best Film Editing for me, because I just think it's insanely well put together. And yeah, for it to have a structure that is so unstructured in some ways, I think it's amazing how well this movie flows.
Yeah, I would say production design as well. Did it get anything? Did it get any nominations? Because I saw some tweets from people that were just bemoaning the fact that they had been kind of shut out. But I didn't know if that was an absolute, we don't get anything, or if it was just that it didn't get any of the big awards.
Yeah, no nominations at all.
That's rough.
Yeah, it's shocking to me that this film didn't get a single nomination. That's crazy.
I wonder if it's... No, I was going to say, I wonder if it just has something to do with it just not getting the release that they could have, just because, you still have COVID around. But that shouldn't affect the Academy. The Academy gets screeners.
Well, yeah. And it's, these days when you look at movies that are released predominantly on streaming services, like Power of the Dog is the front runner. Mm-hmm. That I think only got a week's worth of screenings here in cinemas before it was just on Netflix. I think this had a longer play in cinemas than that did, certainly here. I'm not sure about over there, but yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
crazy.
I don't think Wes Anderson cares. I could be wrong, but he just strikes me as somebody who's fine.
Absolutely true.
I'll get them with the next one. So going back to actors for a little bit though, because Tony Revolori, I think that's his name. It's the guy from Grand Budapest Hotel, and here he's in the movie for not even 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But I was just happy because I've seen him as Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man movies. And then,
right, yes, yeah.
But that's kind of it's a small part. And so I was happy that he's kind of being kept in the stable of Wes Anderson players. And, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum wasn't in this one, but, Jason Schwartzman has a small part, Bob Balaban. How do you feel about that, when filmmakers have their own kind of set of players that they kind of dip in and out of? Do you like that? Or do you prefer it when they just kind of stretch their muscles and have
honestly, I love it. Because,
okay, me too.
There's no a filmmaker who has such a relationship with an actor that they write for them so well. For example, I just think a relationship like that between a filmmaker and an actor is great. And the thing about Wes Anderson is, yes, he has his regulars. But I loved the way you used the word players before, because to me, it's like at this point, he's got a chess set. He's got, 20 pawns and he's got 4 bishops, and he can kind of use them interchangeably as he wants and move them around. And I actually think he's got such a massive cast now of people to play with that I have no problem with him using the same cast. Put Bill Murray in every Wes Anderson movie.
Yes, I think
he should be. It's not a Wes Anderson movie without Bill Murray in it, honestly. He's just so good. But yeah, I've got no problem with that at all. What's your favorite filmmaker-actor relationship, do you think?
So for the longest time, I would have told you... maybe it still is Scorsese De Niro, which is kind of a easy answer because it goes back so many years and they have so many high points together. And you just got it back a couple of years ago with the Irishman, and it's like, they still got it. I I mean, this is too soon to tell, but Fassbender and Steve McQueen, yeah. So they did Hunger, they did Shame, and they did 12 Years a Slave. And I thought that was, all three are phenomenal movies. So that's a good one. I don't know if they did anything else after 12 Years a Slave, but, he'll get him back.
Yeah.
I would say maybe Sofia Coppola and Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah,
they have three together, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I like it because you get to see, especially when you get them to try new things, and so you have this director, and you might recognize some things, but you also get to see them stretch their muscles. So Scorsese and De Niro doing The King of Comedy is fantastic, and like with Wes Anderson and Bill Murray, for example, I think that they've generally played the same notes. I think he got Rushmore is a big one where he's playing like a fleshed out character. And then, obviously Life Aquatic, but then for the most part, his roles in the later movies is more like, and here's the Bill Murray character.
Yeah.
That's fine too. It's like you were saying, he has him in his chessboard and he knows how to deploy him, and that works fine. And I think that, he does that with Owen Wilson and Jason Schwartzman. Man, I cannot wait for the next movie when he gives Henry Winkler more to do.
That would be cool.
This was his introduction, I think, into the Wes Anderson verse.
Yeah.
He was just mostly in the background.
Yeah.
Just looking disturbed. But I really hope that in a future movie he gets some lines at least.
Yeah. One thing I would love to see from Anderson, and like honestly, who am I to say? I think he's great, and I think a lot of stuff he's done is cool. You were talking before about how you feel like there's the two kind of different styles he's got. He's got these big ensemble pieces and then the more intimate as well. I would love to see him double down on that and give us like a bottle movie with 3 cast members. Like, can you imagine a Wes Anderson movie with like only Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, and Henry Winkler in it, like just the 3 of them, like My Dinner with Andre, but like just those 3 people and directed by Wes Anderson. I mean, fuck, that would be incredible.
Or it could be a disaster, but I would watch it anyway.
Yeah.
Can he do it? I mean, I'll be interested to find out.
I guess it depends on how you think of Anderson, and do you think that his dialogue skills are strong enough to carry a film like that without as much visual flair? Because I think he could do a film like that with no problems.
See, I don't know, because I think that the closest he's done to that is Darjeeling Limited, and I didn't like it.
Which is your least favorite, yeah. Yeah.
You had the 3 brothers, and they were mostly kind of in this train talking to each other, not much of a story, and it didn't work. But that was so many years ago, and I might like it better now, or he might be better at it now. So who knows? So why do you like the last one? Walk me through your rationale of how do you rank these stories? Why do you like the last one least?
I think, honestly, it just comes down to the fact that by that point I was worn out. I thought the first 10 minutes or so was really strong. I love, because I was so into this concept. I thought, wow, this is very, very cool. Like this idea of playing with journalism and the structure of a newspaper, and framing it around this is the last issue ever because the owner has died, and he stipulated that this is how the last issue looks, and I liked that idea, but I think I just got worn out by, I don't even know how to describe it. Because I think you're right. I think, honestly, the third story probably is fairly close to the top. Because I like the concept of that story and everything. I was just so tired by the end. And it's not a long movie. It's less than 2 hours. So, for a film to be that short and still wearing, that's where, for me, I was like, okay, something here isn't working. And honestly, I feel like I don't know how to... I feel like I'm a bit of a dick for saying that, because I've done nothing almost but praise this movie. I think the direction is incredible. The acting is all great. We haven't even got to the score yet, but absolutely beautiful. And yet, that's why the only thing I can think of is the screenplay and the narrative, that it just lost me by halfway through, and it felt more like a chore to finish the movie than enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, because I've had that feeling mostly when reading short story books. Short story anthologies, I'll have to take a break, because it's that feeling of closure when one ends, And then you have to
you need that breathing space, that time to, let it sit. Yeah.
You have that effort of, I'm starting over from scratch again.
Yeah.
Introducing all the new characters, a new setting, and all that stuff. So I get it. Which is why the idea of more of these stories sounds exhausting to me. Like a 3 is probably the best number. But
see, to me, I guess it's, it's like, you don't get worn out watching an episode of Saturday Night Live, for example. And I know that that's not a great comparison because, sometimes it's wearing watching that show anyway, just because that's really hit and miss. But I think if you're looking at a length of, say, 10 minutes maximum, and I think it's a really interesting exercise from a filmmaking point of view as well. Like, people think of short stories and short films as being the easier thing to do. And I actually think that's completely wrong, because to tell a story in that length of time that makes people care, I think is really difficult. But I think it's just because these segments, they're not full length, but they're really long. Like, they're each about half hour in length. It's just long enough for me that, like you say, you get that feeling at the end of it where you're like, oh, now I'm starting over again. Whereas I feel like if they were shorter, you might not get that feeling so much, because you'd get used to that pace of movement rather than getting sucked into this full story that then just ends.
Yeah, I watched a movie not too long ago. It's in French, but the title translates to Paris, I Love You. And I want to say it's 18 short stories.
Yeah, all made by different film directors.
Exactly, yes. And so that's...
Yes, I've seen that a very long time ago,
Yeah, but that's that kind of format where every short is really short. I mean, that's how you fit 18 in 2 hours.
Exactly,
of course, because there are different filmmakers for each one, then the quality and the styles vary so much that it's not a fair comparison, because you might be reacting to the story or just to the sensibilities of the director. And so... But watching that one, I still felt it, because some of them were very emotional and some of them were very slight. And so it was just kind of like a bit of a roller coaster anyway. This one, I think that I was mostly happy because I liked the third one so much more than the second one. The second one features one of my least favorite type of characters, which is the college revolutionaries.
Yep.
Those... They can be, not always, but they can be pretty insufferable. And in this movie, they're insufferable, even though I know that they're on the right side of history in a way, but honestly, I don't even understand. I didn't fully understand what they were fighting for, because I disengaged from that story kind of halfway through.
Yeah.
But I guess I was thinking about it. I was like, what is it? Why do I don't like them? It's because, that idea of that with youth in college and the new ideas come a bit of like self-righteousness. And I guess I've seen so much. I mean, not just, obviously, I'm sure I was a little shit when I was, that age too. But then when you're old, and just the idea of like, these kids have all this potential, but they're just so single-minded about how to get things. And there's one moment in that story that I loved, and I am like, this made it all worth it. And that's when Frances McDormand kind of like stepped in and talks to the girl that was leading one of the leaders of the revolution, of this youth revolution, and basically tells her, you're a child. And then Frances McDormand apologizes if she offended her, and the girl doesn't take the apology. And then McDormand says, are you sure you're not a child? Because you should learn how to take an apology, or something like that. And I was like, that's it. You can end it right now, because that was the end of it. But the rest was kind of messy. There were things I liked. Timothée Chalamet's hair in that sequence is just out of control. And the implication, well, more like they told us, we just didn't get to see it, that he had sex with Frances McDormand, which seemed wild.
Yeah.
There were some funny things there, but overall it was just like, it's not the type of character that I like. And the story just wasn't engaging. And so it was a downer after how much I liked the first one. Yeah. Like, I was riding high off the story of Benicio del Toro as this murderous killer in prison that discovers his love for art, and then the businessman that tries to exploit it, and that whole story is great. And then this thing because I was so high, or I was like, oh, I need to watch this again. I need to watch it with my wife. She's going to love it. And then the second story happened. I was like, oh man, no, this is not going to be great. And then the third one happened, and the third one was making me laugh again. And it was interesting. I really liked Jeffrey Wright's voice. And, you know, we were talking about how it's the voiceover that is through the entire movie, but there's different voices and they're very distinct. You know, because you can tell
they are, because it's different writing styles as well, which is really clever.
They have so much personality, each of these segments. And so the story was interesting. I love the gimmick, which is like, oh, I'm writing about the chef that specializes in cooking for cops. And so the food has to be suited, like, you know, for very specific needs. They need to be able to eat it in silence and make a mess. It's just so good. So I was just so happy, you know. I think that's why it ended up on a high.
I wonder how differently I would feel about each of these segments if I was to watch them kind of in a vacuum. Like if I was to just put on that second one and then walk away for an hour and then just put on the third one, I probably would like the third one a lot more. You're probably right. I think, and that's to me where the issue with an anthology comes in, is that there still needs to be a purpose for it to be an anthology, I think. And it's an interesting move of Anderson, because I'm thinking back over the last, 15, 20 years of anthology films I've seen. It's very rare for an anthology to be made by a single voice. Like, generally the idea behind anthology films is that, you know, you get someone different in for each segment so that they're kind of slightly different. This is a rarity to have an anthology film written in such a way. And I guess that's, to me, where it fell flat, is that I feel like it's not worth the sum of its parts, if that makes sense.
It's been so long. I don't remember how you guys felt about the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
I loved it. Topher and Beth hated it.
Yes, I remember now, because she kept bringing up the fact that it's not particularly feminist.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
I actually we had to edit a bit out of that episode because we got into a bit of a discussion, because I was like, but this is the story. This is what the film is. You know, like, would it be cool if there were more female characters? Sure, but they're males telling a story about males in a time period that, you know, like, I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I remember, because even with whatever you edited out, I still remember feeling, you know, I remember that point being made. That point was made, and I guess I picked it up because I agree. I understand the frustration of, you know, being a woman and not feeling represented in a movie. But, you know, I guess it's a fine line. You know, it's like, it's fair to ask, like, did we need another movie about dudes in the Old West being dudes? But then my answer is like, but it's so good. I think that we need this one, you know.
That's my thing too.
Complaining about the bad ones.
That's my thing as well. I think it had worth to it. Yeah, I loved that movie, actually. Yeah.
There you go. Singular voice, short stories.
That's true.
That they must have inspired Wes Anderson to that.
But again, from memory, are there 7 stories in that one?
I think it's 6.
Right. So again, though, shorter in length, and maybe that to me is the difference. Maybe because, the 3 30-minute stories for me was just too much. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I wonder how it plays on a rewatch again when you know what you're getting into. I don't see myself feeling differently about the middle chapter just because it has nothing to do with I guess expectations. It's just more, I know exactly why I don't like it, you know, but but I could probably appreciate more everything else that's happening. So if anything, this might even go up, you know, higher on my estimation. And I really like the ending. The ending was good when they're just everybody in present day gathering to write the obituary. That was when Jeffrey Wright sits down and he's like, let's write it together. It's like, oh,
yeah.
He stuck. That's the moment he stuck the landing. That was the line that I was waiting for. That was really nice.
So, all in all, how are you scoring this movie?
Before I score it, because you said score.
Oh, yes.
That's one more thing that I love about the third story, and that is the score in the third story. That little music with the piano as Jeffrey Wright. I mean, it's there throughout, but especially as he's walking down the police station and going where he's trying to get, and then throughout the hostage situation and everything. It's beautiful. I cannot believe they didn't get nominated at least for Best Original Score.
Yeah, same. That's the one category that for me feels like a snub. I would like it to be up for film editing for sure. I think production design is a no-brainer. I think Nightmare Alley is probably going to win production design, but this was a strong competition, I thought. But the score in this film is beautiful. Like, Desplat is a genius.
Yes. Yeah. Such a good, I guess, fusion of composer and filmmaker, because it's like I listen to it, I'm like, this is such a Alexandre Desplat score, but I also think this is such a Wes Anderson score.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
They're like together in my mind.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, I am landing, Billy, on an 8 out of 10.
Wow, that's a solid score. That's cool.
It was a 7 all throughout the middle. And then the third story happened and moved it back up to 8.
Yeah, right. See, that's so interesting because I was an 8 at the start of the film, and by the end, I've landed on a 6. and again, maybe a rewatch would change things because, I know what I'm in for now, and I can kind of train myself not to get so invested before we move on to the next segment. But I think that there's so much to love about this film stylistically, but for me, I couldn't enjoy the structure enough. So I'm a 6 in the end.
Well, it's better that... No, actually, it's not. It's exactly what you gave Life Aquatic, isn't it?
It is, yes. Next time you come on, we'll have to do like Fantastic Mr. Fox or something.
Something that you really like.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny that you said you haven't seen Bottle Rocket, because I really like Bottle Rocket. That's probably my favorite Wes Anderson film. So maybe we'll chuck that on at some point.
I just have to finish. Yeah. I mean, I'm game. I'll save it then. I won't watch it right away.
But thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell everybody about how wonderful The Contrarians is and where they can find it, and that you've now stopped watching Muppet movies?
Yes. Well, number one, The Contrarians are wonderful. The Muppets are wonderful as well. So
the Muppets are wonderful.
We did a whole run of Muppet-related episodes, but no, by the time that this drops, we've moved on from the Muppets and we are into, I think we're doing a couple of sports movies. Alex wanted to do that basketball movie with Will Ferrell, Semi-Pro, because it's rotten.
Right, I've not seen that.
It's he feels very passionately about it, so I need to rewatch it. And then we're doing Moneyball, kind of like to offset, because Moneyball is fresh. But we take fresh movies according to Rotten Tomatoes, we take rotten movies according to Rotten Tomatoes, and we argue for the opposite. So we're going to say really nice things about Semi-Pro, we're going to say really nasty things about Moneyball, and then in the second half of the show, we tell you how we really feel. But it's good stuff. It's entertaining. So if you want to hear us just be stupid about really bad and really good movies, just look up The Contrarians on your podcatchers.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a heap of fun. And thank you also to patron of the show, Austin, who suggested this one. Because this was one that I had originally put on the schedule last year, and then due to lockdowns and everything, it fell off. And so I wasn't going to get to it on the show, but I'm glad that we did. Hey.
It's the second chapter in our Wes Anderson trilogy that it looks like it's going to be closed with Bottle Rocket. So, this is good. This is history in the making.
It is. Well, next week I'll be joined by Liz from Movie Reviews in 20 Qs to talk about Uncharted, which does not look good, but...
Wow, I didn't know it was opening already. I'm just so...
Yeah.
I've never played the game, so I couldn't tell you. It looks like a movie.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. You want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and I'll catch you next week.